Yeah, Ginger, good afternoon to you. Good morning for me. Good evening to you, Steve.
Hello.
Thanks so much for inviting me on the channel. I look forward to our talk today.
Absolutely, yeah. So I want to get started with this and give you a chance to give a little introduction on yourself, as this is the first time to your channel. So first off, thanks for joining on this. I think we met what back in. I'll fix my camera here. For some reason, it's slightly blurry. But yeah, we met back in 2018 in India, I think, right?
Yeah, That's kind of wild. So you live in Seattle, I live in Arizona, and we met in India. That's just kind of how it goes. Because you lent me your power supply because I was the idiot that left mine at home, and that never happens anymore.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things you learn once at a conference, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to have 3 backups. I always have.
Yeah, exactly. I do. I have one now. I'm like, this is the bag. This is the bag power supply, and it never leaves. And then I have one like 2 other places, so I won't ever have that. It'll never happen again. But it's good of you to lend me one for a bit. So appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I've been doing kind of the same thing that you have for at least since 2018, looking at playing with all things data, doing Power BI, doing Synapse, doing, of course, now Fabric, helping people integrate their data environments using the Microsoft stack, as well as doing quite a bit of training. A lot of people, I am a Microsoft certified trainer in addition to being a data platform MVP. And I've got classes on LinkedIn. I do cert classes. And I'm going to be in New York in 2 weeks at PASS teaching in New York, teaching all about data and AI. So.
Very cool. And tell me like a little bit. I know you've been like partnering with the LinkedIn Learning platform, but there certainly I've not done the courses, but from the video promos that I've seen, it looks like pretty high quality content.
It is. What is so fun about that is that, so I will say that I am my own worst critic. So if I was doing the video, it would take weeks and weeks for me to do because I'd be like, no, need to redo it. And how I did my classes, they give you an option. And I'm like, now we'll just make this faster. And I've gone to Cupertino, California, which is where LinkedIn's offices are, which is a beautiful little beach community north of Santa Barbara. Very nice. That's Kevin Costner's estate is there, to give you an idea of what kind of place it is. Yes, very nice. And they have these soundproof cubes, and you go in them, and everything is so quiet. Even the air conditioning is sound filtered, so you hear nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, and they set you up with all the stuff that you need to be really successful, and they do all of the editing. So yay! That's why.
So you basically just have to do the raw recording.
I do the raw recording. They approve my scripts beforehand. I tell them what I'm going to do in the demos. They're not that technical. And then it's more like, hey, you might want to do that bit again. You sounded a little flat, or maybe, you can't say fabric today. You'd be surprised at the words you all of a sudden can't pronounce when you have a camera in your face. And they actually a sound studio with a professional camera operator and a teleprompter. So the promos for it are filmed in there. So that's kind of fun. Professional makeup artists and hair people and all that good stuff.
With your training now, are you finding yourself doing more fabric training in recent months?
I am. As a matter of fact, it seems like everybody wants training. I just landed a new consulting gig. And one of the reasons that they said that they wanted me to help them out is because they didn't want to just have somebody do fabric. They wanted help on training. So they had other consultants that they were not happy with because they want to learn how to do things more than, here you go, do the thing. And I think it's really important to know how to do it, because what I tell people is I can save you a lot of time, because I know what mistakes you'll probably make, and I can tell you not to do those.
Exactly. It's, learn from the expert. Don't repeat the same things that we've had to do.
Right. And it's the other thing too, like I had a consulting arrangement a while ago, and they're like, we just want security. We've got everything perfect. We just need security. And I looked at their model and I'm like, you can't do row level security. Your data model doesn't support it. I'm like, So sometimes, getting a consultant in early, as you guys know, can help people from making mistakes that's going to keep them from technical debt, because they have to redo things because they went about it one way and it just doesn't support, things going forward.
That implies that they're smart enough to necessarily do that first. I'm sure you're yourself included. Like pretty much all consultants that I know in the MVP community and otherwise is like often get clients for you. It's like we did self-teach. We self-taught probably a year or two past when we should have. Things work, but they're too complex, and we're paying for like 2 F64s. We probably don't need that much. Can you help us learn how to drop our capacity down? Because it's the wild west of like models and everything out there.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's no way we're running out of capacity. I'm like, see this error? This is what that means. Really? Yeah.
You see that little spike where it's at like 80 to 100%? Yeah, that's you at your capacity limit.
Yeah. You know what? You ought to let many people, here's my like advertisement for today. If you're running Fabric in your organization, let everybody see what is in the Fabric Capacity app. It is read only. It is not high security. There's no reason not to give organizational wide access to the fact of how much resource you're using. If you know enough to build something, you know enough to take a look at it. Don't restrict that. It is not Fort Knox. It is not the crown jewels. You can let everybody take a look at it. So soapbox off.
I think very good advice. Yeah, I think that's not looked at enough, I think. And a lot of people either don't know how to use it properly or just don't look at it enough, but very helpful.
Or don't get access to it because it's like, well, that's administrative. It's like, no. Let people look at it. Let people see, because I've worked at an organization and they had a 128 and their devs ran them out of capacity. Did they know that? No, because they didn't have the ability to look at that.
Fair point.
So you just need to let everybody see the kind of capacity that's being used so they know how to manage it, or that they need to manage it. Because sometimes to be honest, the errors that you get are kind of obtuse. They don't say you are out of capacity, which is really what you want to see in big, bold letters. But that's not what you see.
Definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Talking about enterprise stuff as well, I think today's topic is going to be one that I'm very interested in, variables and CICD. So
it's real big topic. I know that for anybody who spent any time on Reddit for Fabric, it's something that Fabric has gotten beat up for, as long as Fabric has been around. And before that, Power BI got beat up with it too. So since Power BI and Fabric are sharing a lot of the same elements, this is one thing that I think is moving it more towards some of the good things that Power BI had that weren't yet in Fabric until April. So, and that's variable libraries.
The reusability of them, I think, hopefully will often, as you pointed out already, is like reduce the technical debt that people haven't done. It's one of the worst kinds of debt to collect out, outside of anything financial related. From a technical perspective, it's pretty bad. I think I have regular conversations with my clients where it's at the end of the day, you are signing the check, so you do get final vote on like what is or isn't implemented. But I could at least be like, I'm discouraging you from doing this because you're adding a lot of debt to whatever you're about to implement. I will build it for you, but you know that you're golden handcuffing me to be the only person who's probably going to be able to continue to work on this, which is fine. Just let you know, in 2 years from now, you're still going to come back to me because your internal consultant probably won't be able to figure this out because it's too complex. It's a house of cards. But if you want it, I'll build it.
Yeah. Well, one thing too is it like back in the I've been a developer in some part of my career that I choose to forget. But one of the things that a lot of organizations think is really important is you don't have your devs involved in everything. And I think there's a lot of logic to that. Just because you write the code doesn't mean that you need to be the one to test it and move it. And if somebody else is doing it, that helps you reinforce the standards that you need to implement when it comes to, good source control policies. Because it's like, well, I'll move that. I'll check it in and I'll move it. No, you'll check it in and then somebody else will move it. It's making sure that there's not any weirdness that needs to be applied to make that happen, so that you can ensure what you have in source control is really what's going into test, because there's no chicanery going on. It's just happening because somebody pushed a button, which is how it should be. That means you're relying on what you've got checked in. So all these are kind of important elements that if you have one person just like pushing all the buttons, they might not happen. And you'll find out when it really matters because you can't roll back.
Exactly. Well, at least for the conversation of the day today, if you're ready, we can flip over and get the screen share going and start diving into it. Excellent.
Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about first is like, this is all, if we're talking about variable libraries, but it's really all part of CICD. You know, and you do need to set up some things in Fabric to make it work. It's not going to work unless you have it turned on. As usual, variable libraries are a preview feature, so you do need to make sure that's turned on. You need to also make sure that you've got workspace capacity turned on. I was doing a demo for somebody this week, and it would let me create everything that I needed to do for setting up GitHub until I tried to make it work. And then it's like, oh, this capacity is not on. I'm like, oh, let me go fix that. So, you know, just making sure that you've got that capacity set up. And also, you know, how variable libraries and works with GitHubs and DevOps and implementing branching strategies. And then, of course, you can't, as I told my current client, you cannot make variable libraries work unless you've written your code in a certain way, and you need parameters. So the parameters are what you're going to change when you move from dev to test to prod. Hopefully you will have at least all three of those. And then development pipelines is what's going to push it there. And having these rules for variable libraries makes that start. So first off, I wanted to talk about source control in Fabric, because I recently prompted to kind of really look at this. And I found some things that really surprised me, because I've always been of the mind that I like the features, I like the functionality, the documentation that I can include in DevOps. So I'm just going to use that. Well, I have a client that's like, well, what about GitHub repo? So I started investigating the differences. And while you can use Entra with GitHub repo, not really with Fabric. But with Azure DevOps, that does. So what does that mean? Well, with GitHub, you use a token to show who last checked in an object versus Entra, which means if I go look in Azure DevOps, I can see, oh, Reed checked this in, Steve checked that in, Ginger checked this in. If I look at the repo, I'm like, token checked that in. So yes, it works, but if you want to know that Reed checked that thing in, you don't know. So in my mind, that's a reason that I don't like GitHub repo, because I want to know who checked it in. Not that yes, it's important that it was checked in, but I want to know who, like, I want to know who to yell at if I have to.
I was about to say, who do you yell at? Yeah, I get that.
You can't tell. You cannot tell with GitHub repo. And because it doesn't show you that ID. And it seems to me that if you compare what you can do with DevOps and GitHub, that there just seems to be some things that are missing. Well, I went and talked to Microsoft about this, and DevOps is considered code complete, which means they're not looking to add anything to it. And Microsoft is recommending GitHub repo for all new Fabric installations.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And they're planning on fixing all these things real soon now. But that's not today. So if you want to know who checked it in, you'll better use DevOps. So kind of an interesting take. I was surprised to learn that this is the recommendation. But yeah, it is. Funny enough. So won't belabor the point too much on that, but keep that in mind. But I wouldn't, although that is Microsoft's recommendation, I personally find it's really important to know who checked one in, so I wouldn't do it. I get to pick. So, but no matter which one you use, you're going to need to implement branching strategies. Spoiler alert, don't do everything in main. It's a bad idea.
No?
No.
You should put all your files in one folder.
Yeah. You shouldn't put all your files in one folder. Or like, just commit it, just commit everything to main, which I will say, guilty. I do that, but do a lot of work by myself. And if it's in my tenant, well, that's just what happens. But
well, yeah, like personal projects, sure. You don't really need like that many branches if it's one person doing everything.
No.
And for a single project, yeah.
Right. But think about the fact that I always like to tell people that like someday things are going to get messed up. And that's what you should design for. Not for everything working, but for things that are getting messed up, which means you need to practice your merging. So if I do something and you do something, Reed, we need to merge that to dev and see if we can get that working before we go to main. So do your stuff in your workspace. So, create your own user workspace, get that working, merge to dev and have everybody merge to dev. And then when dev is good, then you merge that to main, then you move it from dev to test to prod. And generally speaking, we're only talking about dev because I hope you're not doing all that stuff anywhere else. But I am a big fan of having the user workspace experience. And when you have merged it to dev, delete it. Don't keep old stuff around in perpetuity, because the idea is that you are, doing this migration. You always want to make sure you get the latest. If you keep the old workspaces out there, then you're probably not going to get the latest. And I realize that this can be kind of a governance issue, but it is the best way from a source control perspective. Is this kind of what you're seeing with your clients?
What do you think, Steve?
Environment? Yeah, it's pretty much.
So yeah,
pretty much the way everybody's doing it now, even though it is a little annoying. So, but this is basically the process that you need, because it doesn't matter if you use GitHub or Azure DevOps. That's not how you're going to be moving your code. And people who do a lot of .NET development are like, really? I'm like, no, you're not going to. Because Microsoft has created something else to move stuff, and those are development pipelines. And development pipelines were first created as part of Power BI. And in Power BI, they have these really cool little lightning bolts with a gear next to them. And the lightning bolts with a gear next to them were how you changed your parameters that you created in Power Query. So when you moved to dev to test to prod, that you could change your connections. But Fabric's a bit more complicated than that. And having the little lightning bolt with a gear just wasn't going to cut it. So needed to have something else to it. But the concept for development pipelines is the same. It's still how you're going to move things. And I remember when it first came out, it said, thou shalt only ever have 3 environments. That's changed. You can have as many environments as you feel like it. You can call them whatever you want. But a dev pipeline consists of workspaces. So funny enough, I was teaching a client all about dev workspaces last year. And I went to my development pipeline, and what you do, and I'll show you this in the demo, is you select your development environment from a list of workspaces that you have as your starting area, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how come the development workspace isn't on the list? Well, come to find out that if somebody else claims your development workspace in another pipeline, you can't double it. So a workspace can only be in one pipeline. Well, here's the thing. Somebody did that as test. I didn't have access to it. I couldn't see that pipeline, and they stopped because they got confused when they were doing it, but yet that took it out of the list. So if you ever are trying to create a development pipeline and you're looking for a workspace and it's just not in the drop-down list, it's because it's in somebody else's dev pipeline that you may or may not have the ability to see. So don't panic. Just start saying, all right, how many pipelines do we have? And to go to the admin thing and assign yourself to the other pipelines so that you can change it up. Because a workspace can only be in one pipeline. Still, although that there are a lot of things that have been added, doesn't include everything. Doesn't include ML models. And specifically, it doesn't include data lake connections. You're like, what do you mean? You can move over semantic models. Yes, you can, but you cannot change the connection for data lake if you create your own semantic models. And so we'll get into how to do that, because it's kind of a cool trick that I can show you how to do. So this is what it looks like. Now, there are 2 different ways you can look at this. I like the old school way, but there is the new version that you can look at as well. So when you're looking at it, you're like, mine doesn't look anything like that. Yeah, I know. It's because you're using the new version and I'm not. And this, you can scroll over and you can see everything that's in one versus the other. And this orange X means that there is a discrepancy between the two. Now, one thing that you'll notice is there is a deploy button. There's no back button, which means that you can only go forward. So if you're like, great, that deployment to test, yeah, that was a total abomination. You need to get rid of that. Okay, you're not going to be doing that here. You have to do that in source control because you can't go back. And you can do things like dumb things like I could add a notebook to my test environment. That notebook is not in development environment. I can't move it to my development environment within here. I'm going to have to make that happen outside. So keep that back. And by the way, this is not tracking changes. Now, you know, from a deployment perspective, you know when somebody did it, and you have to grant people access to this, which is what this manage access is about. But if somebody didn't check something into source control, yeah, you can still deploy it. It's not going to stop you from doing anything because you didn't follow any rules. So rules are on you. But this gets into, you know, what, if you've got a pipeline, this gets into why variable pipelines are important. Okay, it is still in preview, but this is going to let you move from dev to test to prod and not have to touch anything afterwards, which is really cool because before it came out on April 1st, you couldn't do that. So it really improves the CICD functionality because the last thing you want to do is touch a bunch of things when you're doing your migration. You just want to migrate stuff. And this allows for that better workspace environment there. So what you do is you make sure that you have parameters. And then you define the configurations for dev, test, and prod. And then you can get those things to integrate. So what does that look like anyway? Well, when you create a variable library, it looks like this. So it starts out blank. I've actually filled it up with a bunch of elements that I have added there. I kind of went full hog on all the different things that you can do. Now, one thing that is kind of interesting when it comes to a when it comes to a pipeline, is in a pipeline, it doesn't use names for your lakehouse and warehouse. It uses the GUIDs. So they actually are, you know, similar to what you see here. So if you're like, well, why didn't you just put in the names? Because I cannot use names inside of pipelines. Pipelines require the GUIDs, which is why I have them here. So you're going to need to go find them. They're pretty easy to do, but it makes it non-intuitive. If you look at it, you're not going to know if that's right. You have to go check. If they are the same, it can consider that they're wrong. Other than that, you don't really know. Mm-hmm. Then I just played around with adding some other ones. So you need to make sure that, of course, that means you have to have developed it this way as well. So if you have not created pipelines that have used parameters, you're going to need to do that to make variable libraries work. So created all these different library variable names here. So first step, of course, is to do that is I'm going to create that variable library, and then I'm going to use that library. And then I'm going to say which set is active because I'm going to have a set for dev and test and prod. So I'm just going to say, okay, this one is active, this set is active, this set is active, but I need to go ahead and create those two. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what you have to do as well as what you need to set up inside of the admin section to make that work. Because of course, you have to make sure that this stuff is going to be set up in the admin portal for it to work. Of course, there's so many things in here. I just always use the find here. So make sure that you've got a variable libraries enabled for at least you so that people can do this. Obviously, first step in making this work. Otherwise, that's not going to happen. All right, so if I've got one created, what I can then do is take a look at a given workspace. So here I'm going to go ahead and create my variable library inside of my workspace because it is, you know, directly tied to everything inside of my workspace. So, and of course, you can take a look at all the other things that Fabric have inside of it. It was added at part of FabCon in Vegas. So it is, of course, all the way at the bottom, came out April 1st and has been using it ever since, which is why here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and add it. So I'm going to add my variable library. I'm just going to call it var library. because I'm creative like that. So goes ahead and creates it. Simple one-click thing. It's empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create variables. And this is going to be my default value set initially. So this is what I'm going to use in dev. So I have to have them everywhere. So then I got to go get my GUIDs for this and then go ahead and paste them in there. So all of my GUIDs here are inside of that I've got to go ahead and paste in here. So I got my workspace. I've got my source, my source lakehouse. And in my little simple example, I'm just going to move a table from my source lakehouse to my destination lakehouse, just as kind of an example, just to show you the kinds of things that you can do with it. So I'm good. So my lakehouse, again, have to have a string for that. I'll show you where I'm grabbing that, but I'm going to go ahead and grab it. And then, of course, the same thing with my destination. So now, if I didn't do this, and I've done this before variable libraries exist, what this happens is that after you migrate, that you have to go in and change all of these, which meant that I didn't parameterize stuff because it's faster to go in and just pick them off the list. So this is a much better experience to do. So then I just kind of wanted to show a way of parameterizing everything to do this. Now, interestingly enough, if I'm doing notebooks, notebooks do not allow me to have parameterized the workspace or the name of my default lakehouse or warehouse. Okay. I can do it, but I can't do it as a parameter. I get an invalid JSON error when doing it, when I'm running a config statement. So in a notebook, what you do with a notebook is to make sure that your default is set the same, you use a magic command and put in the name of your default lakehouse and run that magic command. That will automatically configure it for the current warehouse or the current workspace you happen to be in. So it's a simple config -f statement inside of your notebook to basically tell yourself to connect to the default. If it's not default, it's not a problem. It's just your default lakehouse if you're using that. And most people are. I found that weird, but that is how it works. So this is basically saying that, hey, you've set all these, if you realize if you change these, you might break stuff. So going ahead and making that happen. All right, so I've got a whole bunch of parameters. So how do I implement these and make these work? Well, I'm going to create a new, so this is what I'm going to do. This is my employee table. And I want to take this and find out what the lakehouse ID is. I can get that from the Libby endpoint. So if I go to workspace, the first thing after workspace is the GUID for that. So keep on scrolling. Then I'll get the word lakehouse / and the items after that is the GUID for my lakehouse. Easiest way in the world to grab it so that you can put that inside. So what I want is I'm going to move this from one lakehouse to, and we'll pretend I'm doing some destination, to another one. So I'm going to move it into this lakehouse. So I'm going to move it from one to adding it to this one. Oh, by the way, I kind of want to bring up, because some people don't remember this. If you are migrating your items from dev to test, you're doing the objects, not the data.
Okay.
So any tables or views or security that you got in your lakehouse or your warehouse, yeah, that's not there. That's something you need to do separate. So keep that in. I know that people are like, what? How come I don't have any tables there? It doesn't move those. And it does that they meant to do that. So that's going to need to be another process that you're going to need to include as part of your CICD. Generally, I just script them and put them in a notebook. If it makes it easy way to do it. All right. But I want to have I have to have parameters. So here I'm going to add parameters and library variables. And I'm going to do this here. Now, what are these variable names here? These are ones for this pipeline. And I'm going to map that to a pipeline variable, and it's a very small dropdown, the ones that exist. So the ones on the left are ones for this pipeline. So they need to exist in the context of this pipeline, and then I'm mapping to them. which is kind of weird, but that's how it works.
Okay.
And I'm just basically picking it because if otherwise it doesn't know what they are, because it doesn't have any contextual relevance to what is in my library. This is me matching it to it. So the parameters that exist in the context of this particular copy job are the ones that I'm mapping. So that's why I've got two sets. And I am putting PL to show you that these are the pipeline ones. I just find that easy to put. It makes more sense in my brain to identify the pipeline ones with PL after it. And I didn't do anything with the ones inside of the library. So, and just, pick it off the list, So this is just basically making sure that I have them all, because if I don't have them mapped here, then I can't use it. So I could potentially have a whole bunch of library variables that I'm not using in this particular pipeline, because, I could have like 4 or 5 different pipelines in this particular workspace. So it's only the ones that I say are connected are then connected to this. So yeah, a bit of work to start off with, but you get the concept of why I need to do it. And did I need to probably do the tables? No, but what the heck? Doing all the things. All right, so now that I've got them, now I get to use them. So inside of my pipeline here, I'm actually going to give this a real name, since copy data 1 is just a horrible way to try to troubleshoot things. If you've got 10 things like that, ask me how I know. So for my connections, I'm going to say that I need to want to use dynamic content, because using dynamic content is the only way that I'm using variables. And notice here, I've got the list of all the PL variables here. So I'm going to say, okay, what is the source that I want to do? So my source lakehouse is this. And so I'm going to pick that, and it adds that, and automatically adds that workspace ID. I don't want that. I want to use my variables. So I'm going to replace that with a variable. So now I've got my source connection, which is the name of the lake house. And then I've got the workspace, because it always has to have that. So everything.
Very nice addition when we had dynamic content in connection, which wasn't always there. So I think this is a very, very nice thing that they added recently to at least the Fabric data factory.
Now notice that connection type is not a parameter. I had somebody that was complaining about that. I'm like, you changed that? But apparently that is something that Microsoft is looking to do, so that they'll even parameterize the source and destination, although I don't know why you'd do that.
I could see cases if you have a pure metadata driven, and then you
want to do Oracle,
and
one, and
maybe different sources, something like that.
Now I forgot to add my destination lakehouse. I didn't set it up here, so I couldn't use it as a parameter. So I got to go back here and map it. And of course, that's not where it is. So you can have multiple different parameter libraries. I have 2 in this workspace. So that's why it shows up in that drop down. So since I skipped it, I'm going to have to go back into here. And my destination lakehouse is now there. So I can now pick it off the list. So this makes it so easy too, because you don't have to worry about typing the formatting, because obviously this is nothing like pipeline variables, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a big believer in me not typing.
I would agree.
That's how things get messed up if I have to type it. And so, it just does that, and just does it for me. Now I need to make sure that I get the enter manually thing. Otherwise it's not there. So make sure you do click on that box so that you can then go select dynamic content, because it looks weird because it's not there. It's not available. You have to click that box, and then of course it is. So this is everything that I need to set this up so that everything works. So I've got everything parameterized now. So I'm going to go ahead and save and run this just to make sure that it works in dev, of course. So everything looks good. I've got everything set up. My variables are set up. I can just run this. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we will see the fact that I'm going to get that new table inside of my destination, which is the whole point of this copy data thing. So it goes ahead and runs it. And then we can see, we'll see it show up in my destination lakehouse with that new table. It's with so that we can prove that everything works out. So it worked. And go back to the destination. And we see here when I refresh this, ta-da, I'll have a new table. So the whole point of me creating that. Now, all right, so I have done this successfully. Everything works. All my parameters work. So I should be able to set this up inside of a pipeline, right? Well, almost. So first off, notice that these are uncommitted. And I preface this by saying that don't do what I do when it comes to, I'm just going to commit it to main because it's a private project, but don't do this if it is for real. But I do want to check stuff in before I do any kind of migration. So step one, commit the new stuff. Good of them to make sure that variable pipelines, variable libraries rather, work right out of the back when it comes to source control. There was no waiting on getting that to work, which is a fine thing. So then I can go to my deployment pipeline and I can create a new pipeline by clicking on new pipeline, then selecting it, which is going to get me what I have here. So if I click on this green check, notice I do not have a new deployment pipelines environment, which is why mine looks like this. So we can see that I've got some stuff missing, but wait a minute, I don't want to deploy yet because I did not define my variables for test. Now, the one thing too, by the way, you cannot possibly parameterize out a data source unless that source exists. So you're going to need to migrate it initially to test without having the variable pipelines defined so you can find out what the GUID is. Because if it doesn't exist, then you can't copy it. So logic applies there. So I just basically said I want a new one. And then I'm just going to start pasting the different values in. So I got the workspace. And now I need to go back inside of my test workspace here and grab the other elements for source and destination. So it's telling me, hey, you just need, as soon as you want to go out of it, it's like, hey, you added a new set. You want to go ahead and save that. And I want to go to my workspace, my test workspace, and grab those GUIDs. So inside of my lakehouse for source and destination, going to the Livy endpoint and get everything that I need to get the information I need for the parameters. So I've got everything now for source and destination. Well, the destination is the next one, but you get the concept. We'll just kind of blow by that one. So then I got to go back. I'll get this one too. Back while I'm at it. There's no way that I'm going to remember what the heck these are. So I post everything to Notepad so that I could just copy and paste them out of here. And then go back and update my variable library with the elements that I need for this to work so that I can have everything inside of my variable library that I need to move to dev and test. So I'm going to have to do the same thing for prod. Prod's going to need to have updated dev test. By the way, I don't have a prod yet, so I would have to move this to prod so I can get what the source and destination are. You'll notice that I'm not changing the name of the tables parameter-wise, so I don't have to grab anything. If I wanted to do that, I could, but I don't have to. So I'm just going to leave those alone and just change the source and destination elements here so that I can do that. So I'm doing this before I migrate because I want to make sure that I'm migrating these values too, and I want to make sure that this is what is in source control, is the fact that I've got everything. Now, these are not active inside of my dev environment because I'm in my dev environment. So what I'm going to do here is, compare that. They're different. We know that. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy my different elements here so that they end up in test. Now, once they're deployed, then the next thing that I'm going to have to do is, showing me my new ones, is then go in and set my new variables to active. I don't have to add them again or anything, but I have to say which ones are active. And then those were the ones that are going to be used when I run it. So it's just going to be adding those, and then we'll go back to the library and then pull those things out of there, or set the new ones. So go to my test workspace, open up my variable library, and then I'm setting the test ones to active. So these are active now, not those. Those are not default. Those are for dev. So now I've got everything that I need. So now when I run this, it'll work. So everything will happen just because of this. This would have, otherwise, if I'd not done this, it had to have gone in to my test environment and then set all this stuff. So, and that's kind of a pain. So I'm good. I've got variables. Don't have to know or care what they are. And then I can just run it. Everything's set.
Nice.
Yeah. So this does make it, like complete. And if I look in my, just to show you that, no, this is not that rigged of a demo. If I go in here, I don't have my tables because I didn't migrate my tables. So I have no tables. So when I run this, it's going to be the only table that I happen to have on my test workspace because I didn't migrate those, which was something that you do need to remember to do, which the idea of that, the reason that they did that is kind of on purpose, because the idea is that why are you bringing data from different environments in? You really should run it with your new data sources so that you get the right data into it. So that's by design. So I'm good. This is going to run. This is going to work. And then I will have my new table. So this really makes things a lot cleaner to do. And yes, it is in preview. I know that I have a friend who's a fellow MVP. She's like, yeah, I wish we could use that, but my clients don't let me use anything that says preview after it. And I said, well, that's too bad. I honestly will say I've not had any problems with this.
No,
There are other preview items that I cannot say that about, but not this one.
I feel like this one would be a little harder to break just because it's just passing through just simple like data types and strings and other stuff like that. So hopefully this is a little less prone to break than other more complex preview features.
Yeah, to be honest, I would tell you if I had problems with it. There are, like I said, there's things I've had problems with this, not with this. I've not had any issues with this not doing exactly what I wanted to do. So, and that's pretty much how it works. Now, one thing that I did notice though, is that this is great for, your pipelines, but it doesn't include like every single element that you need. One thing that I noticed is kind of an example of things that didn't work is, what about Direct Lake? So most of the time what I do is I create my own semantic model from my lake house or warehouse that I have out there, because there's something that I want different from the default. So I'll create my own and I'll do my thing. But here's the problem with that. There's no way. So back when I was just doing Power BI, you could create parameters in Direct Lake, and then you change your parameters with that little lightning bolt with the gear next to it. Well, as you know, Direct Lake, no Power Query, so no Power Query parameters. Yeah. So you're like,
yeah, okay, that's a fair point.
How do you change the variable? How do you change your location? Because if you did what I just did with your semantic model, it points to dev when you're in test. Problem. So basically, there is a way of doing it though. I know that you can do it with the API, but I found a cooler way, which is TMDL. So you can change it in TMDL, and it's the easiest way I know of to do it. And to do that, you're going to need to use desktop. I don't know any other way of making it work. I know it seems kind of weird that I'm going to be editing a Direct Lake semantic model inside of desktop and not inside of Fabric, but you can't do it inside of Fabric. And you live edit it. And again, in your expression, you change your grids out. So they tend to be at the bottom, and you make sure that you've got TMDL turned on. So, you know, here you can see you've got TMDL turned on, and you change the workspace ID and the lakehouse ID. But you cannot do this any other way. So when you've moved it using that, this is how you have to do that. So here's just an example of how to make that happen, because I don't know where this is documented. I couldn't find it documented. I asked somebody from Microsoft. Thank you, Roy Romano, for helping me out with this. Now I tried doing it in here. So if I open the data model in here, we can see that I got my data model in here, but I can't change anything in here for where things are located. So if I edit it in desktop, I can. So here inside of desktop, I need to make sure that I've got TMDL turned on. So I can't do it the way that I showed you. So I'm going to basically go in, open it this way. So since I've got TMDL turned on, which of course I did in file options, make sure you've got that turned on first. So file, options and settings. So doing that direct connection, no, you can't do it that way, but do make sure that this is on first. And in addition to making sure that you've got have the Power BI PBIP things saved, and then you're going to need to have the semantic model TMDL. And you're going to also need to make sure that you're going to be able to turn on the live edit of semantic models, because that's exactly what we're going to need to do. Now, I can't do it any other way but like this. So I have to use get data. I can't just do it from the service. So I'm going to find my semantic model, and there's this drop down arrow here, and I'm going to say edit. So it took me a while to figure out where the heck that darn edit button was, because I'm like, how do I edit my TMDL? This doesn't make any sense to me. But find that, then go to the TMDL view. And then here inside of TMDL, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go to my semantic model, and I'm going to say script TMDL, and it's going to script the whole thing. So if I script the whole thing,
just as a quick mention on this, is I have like 5 tips that I got with Rui, but one of my things is that this is a great way to auto version your model. Just save a tab and script your TMDL view. So if you're developing and you ever want to revert, do a quick auto script and like, oh crap, I've made too many changes. Cool, there's my script from 20 or 30 minutes ago or 2 days ago. So you can just in your own in a file, you can have version history built into a file now with TMDL view. It's a clever use case of that.
Right, and all you need to do is look for direct lake space dash in it, and that's where you'll find your connection to that. And then you edit it here. Save it, you're good.
Exactly.
So this is the way to update your data connection for semantic models that you move in pipelines. Notice I didn't say anything about variable parameters. I have been told that they are going to get that working sometime soon. But until then, this works.
And now that default models are going away as well, so this will be the only way.
Yeah,
so you can't
exactly.
You won't have default anymore either.
But I mean, I think this is really important for people to know, because to be honest, until I needed to do it, I didn't know how to do it, and I couldn't find out how to do it either. So hopefully people who are using development pipelines see your video and then know that this is how you can make that happen. So, all right. So basically what we talked about, big decision, if you're going to use GitHub or DevOps. I can tell you what I would do, but I can also tell you that Microsoft says to use GitHub. So laundry. I love
that's why we have the community, right? Is sometimes we have to be the naysayers for stuff.
I just really, call me crazy. I just really want to know who checks stuff in. Oh, I know. When the day that changes,
a pretty basic need and want, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's what I want. I do love variable libraries, though. I don't have anything bad to say about variable libraries, other than the fact that I cannot do direct lake modifications to them. So if you're using direct lake and you're using deployment pipelines, you're going to need to edit those connections. And with TMDL using desktop, don't try doing it. You have to go open up a blank one and do it that way. You cannot do it from inside of Fabric. You don't have the options. So crazy. You don't have that edit button otherwise. So
I feel, yeah, variable libraries, that's basic because they're very new, I think. Definitely a huge need. One advantage I see of them myself, it really ties in kind of the advantage of Fabric when we're going to be able, hopefully, to start using them across things like Power BI, notebooks, and your pipelines, having the same variable across everything. I think that's going to be really, really powerful. This sort of stuff is not new for Data Factory, but being able to have your single variables defined and across all your assets, I see that as a really exciting step. Hopefully Microsoft will get there pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, if the ability to change your connections when that gets added to variable pipelines would be awesome. And you'll have everything you need. But until then, there's still a way.
And I'm just liking that they're putting variables everywhere. We're getting it in Fabric. We're getting them eventually in like model variables and DAX. Like, so they're fortunately the names are kind of similar-ish. So I feel like Googling is going to be a little challenging for a bit unless you specifically put like Fabric or DAX in front of it. But the transferability and reusability of these patterns, I think, will become more and more important as the tenants and ecosystems continue to scale out in the Fabric universe as clients adopt it more.
Absolutely. Because like nobody wants to write a custom thing if you don't have to. So if you can do more you do with parameters, is the less you have to do something custom because you can just trade out that parameter. So great stuff. Yeah, I love the fact that there's more and more parameters everywhere. So model variables, looking at chat.
Anything else you want? Anything else just quickly that you wanted to show on the screen? Otherwise, I can put it back to our big frame.
The only thing that I wanted to show is that I do have a LinkedIn Learning class that is free. So I wanted to put that up there in addition to my contact information. So if you want to take that class for free, you can. You're time boxed is the only limitation on it. But LinkedIn Learning's got a lot of great stuff out there. I mean, even if I didn't have classes out there, I would show for them because they curate their content. And so it's not just whatever rando stuff somebody puts out. Somebody actually decides if it's any good or not. So I do think that does make a difference. So especially if somebody else is paying for it, by the way.
Exactly.
Yep.
And Steve, I see just the question. Like, I'm trying to Google it. Like, it's not model variable. What is the actual name of the new variables that are like model level in DAX? I'm just trying to find the SQL BI talk. They did it at SQL Bits.
Yeah, it's been announced by Marco, I think. I don't think there's any.
It was a public chat. It was at SQL Bits.
It was a public chat.
And Microsoft also announced it too.
Jake is saying
user-defined variables. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, there's multiple, because you have, again, there's multiple variables everywhere. DAX ones, variable libraries, Python ones, and all of this. So a lot more coming, as Reed's saying. Similar naming conventions. So hopefully Microsoft's gonna help us out on that one.
Yeah, is it functions or is it because
user-defined functions in DAX? And here's the article from SQL BI.
Well, it's interesting that they're user-defined functions because you can create user-defined functions in Fabric too, which is something else again. So same thing, different thing, same name.
Exactly.
That was a very, very helpful talk and very thank you for taking us through those variable libraries. I think it's, as you mentioned, that at the start, anyone who's been working in Fabric, there's definitely been a few gaps. I'll say that. It's nice to see them starting to close those. I think there's still a bit of way to come, definitely, but this sort of stuff I think is very welcome. I remember doing some some pipelines before we had dynamic connections, and I had something like 30 identical pipelines from different databases. So definitely coming a long way in terms of getting more metadata, automating stuff.
Yeah, because before April, you had to go in and edit everything. It's like no fun.
Yeah.
So
nobody likes the death by 1,000 cuts.
New. And I just hope that it becomes GA soon, so I get those little preview names off of it, so that it'll be available for people who just don't do preview anything in their environments. And I know those people are out there, because I talk to them.
I had a few companies who agree the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely something that I think Microsoft is working on, trying to get a lot more stuff GA. I think they're aware of the amount of stuff they have in preview, so it's nice to see stuff get over the line, I think.
Yeah, well, Microsoft always announces things at conferences, and so we've got 2 big Fabric announcement potentials coming up, and that would be Ignite and, of course, FabCon Europe. So hopefully in one of those 2, I'm thinking more likely FabCon Europe, that we'll see that variable libraries get announced as GA. One hopes. I do not know.
We'll definitely be keeping our ears out.
Yes. Yeah, always.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know, because I always watch the announcements, because, Ignite, they're going to have some. So watch for those.
And I know you have the QR code. Code's up a little bit earlier, but as we're wrapping up, are there any final links or resources or references you'd recommend people check out for either any of this stuff, or also just further content or any things related to you as well, just to make sure we didn't miss anything?
No, this is pretty much what I have. QR codes. Look me up on, LinkedIn. Yep. I'm on, X/Twitter a bit as well. So I find myself a lot more on LinkedIn these days. So, and I want to get back to doing more blogging, but to be honest, I'm unfortunately ensconced in quite a bit of billable work. So that's not a bad thing, but it leaves me less time to blog.
Yeah, exactly. You have to prioritize it at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. And plus, most blogs are now being sucked up by AI anyway, so the traffic is not what it once was.
Yeah, that's true.
So definitely something to worry about. So, but yeah, PBIRGA would be nice too. Yes. How long has that been? 2 years?
PBI, definitely top on a lot of people's lists. I think anything around this code first, variable libraries, the developer modes, all of this, some of them going. So definitely one that we're looking out for, and I know in the community and around has a lot of love for those code first toolings out there.
Thinking about code first is one of the things that I think is so much fun to do in Power BI. Is now that you can bust out the project, is you can vibe code TMDL. So if your organization doesn't pay for Copilot, you can have Copilot comment all of your DAX variables for you and not pay for it in VS Code, using the free Copilot, GitHub Copilot inside of it. So
we had a great session on VS Code and TMDL actually on this channel. So yeah, it was very, very interesting. I think there's some really cool stuff that is potentials with that.
Oh yeah.
Really, really interesting.
And it's really hard to read all that JSON. That's why you need GitHub Copilot to help you out with that. Like, what is this again? So it contextually.
Exactly.
No one's gonna remember all that stuff.
Well, my personal favorite is Claude. I feel like Sonnet, nothing does better coding than Sonnet and Opus on Anthropic compared to like GPT or Gemini or any of the others. I've vibe coded so much with that now.
What's fun about it is in VS Code you can basically bounce back and forth and ask Claude what it thinks of GPT's Chat GPT's code, and have it evaluate which one is better, which is how I ended up using Claude too.
Yeah, I mean it's great for auditing and just finding patterns, and like from a security perspective, how can we do a composite and inheritance structure to not have 8,000 lines of code in one file?
Yeah. So I hear Perplexity, Don saying, I hear Perplexity will say it doesn't know for research. I've not had it hit that, though. I ask it about code that somebody else has written, though.
Oh, yeah. It's great at summarizing.
Yeah. I've not had it argue back for me. I've read the articles where they're saying, like, you should know how to do that, but I've never had it talk back to me. So I'm feeling good about that.
It's not got off the rails yet with you.
No, it's not gone off the rails. I didn't engage with Grok during the Titler period either, because I had to work, so I missed all that fun stuff.
All right. I think I don't see any other questions in. So just before we wrap up, then anything left from you before we have a final sign off?
Well, one thing is that I will say is that next place I'm going to be is a PASS Summit, New York City, in August here on the 18th. So hope to see people there. I'm going to be talking about AI and data.
Oh, nice. Okay. That'll be fun. Are you excited particularly for that topic, or?
I'm doing like a day session on data and AI implementing using Copilot and large language models and stuff like that. So
that'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So
nice.
Yep, hope it's a great event.
Excellent. Then I guess with that, then I want to thank you a lot for coming on to this. I'm sure we'll have you back on at some point.
Thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Glad we made that happen.
Exactly. And I think with that, wish you a good rest of your afternoon, Steve. Good rest of your evening, and everyone, thanks for joining. And we'll see everyone online next week for Heidi Hastings, who will actually be on talking about Microsoft exams and learning platforms.
Heidi's a great friend of mine, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun on that one too.
Oh yeah, she's one of the most bubbly people you'll ever meet. She's great.
Yep, love Heidi.
She always has, and she'll always come to conferences with many goodies and snacks. It's great.
Yes, Australian snacks.
Yes, it's so good.
Yes.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.